What's up, everybody? Welcome back to NOW. I'm your host, Rob Medina, and I thank you all very much for joining me here today because today I'm reviewing the movie Fistful of Vengeance. So this is the brand new Netflix original film that got dropped this week on the streaming platform on the 17th. So there was a lot of things I wanted to say about the film the first time I saw the movie. In fact, when the movie came out on Netflix on the 17th, I was literally going to be doing a review that very same day and release it that same day, but when I first saw the film, I did not like the movie at all. I was thoroughly disappointed with the film, and I was gonna go off and just off on a tangent about what I didn't like about the movie. But then for some reason, I was trying to gather my thoughts and write down what I wanted to say about the film I meant to say. I was trying to find positive things to say about it because I really did want to like the movie. So I did not do the review. Instead, I went back to go watch the movie the following day, and when I saw it, I didn't hate it. I actually thought it was just okay. So it was nowhere near as bad as I remember when I first saw it, but I just had a lot of high hopes, and I just remember being just thoroughly disappointed right from the opening shot. Not from the opening shot, but from the opening 5 minutes, I should say. And as the story progressed along the way, I was just losing interest. And I think at one point in the movie, for the first time I was watching, I stopped watching for like 10 minutes and had to go back and pick up from where I last left off and finish out the movie from there. So watching it the second time around, I was definitely a little bit more invested, but I just wasn't really connected with the story. But it wasn't nowhere near as bad as I remembered. Then I wanted to make sure if that feeling, that sentiment, wasn't a fluke. So I went back to go watch it again right before doing this review, and I still have the exact same sentiments. It's an okay film for me at best. I don't hate the movie at all, but it was just okay. So I definitely will get a little bit into the plot here. Won't get into any really big spoilers because honestly, if I do get into spoilers, it won't really make much of a difference, at least for me personally, to reveal that stuff. But I probably will be avoiding that just for anyone who hasn't seen the film yet. And of course, I'll get into my positives, my negatives, and then my rating. A superpowered assassin, Kai, and his friends track down a killer from San Francisco's Chinatown to Thailand to avenge the death of a loved one, but their hunt soon entangles them with old enemies, a mysterious billionaire, and an ancient mystical force bent on taking over the world. And that right there is a film in a nutshell. So now let's get into my positives. So with my positives, this is where I'm going to have a hard time trying to really articulate my thoughts because I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to the Wu Assassin Season 1 and with this movie because a lot of what the Wu Assassin Season 1 did so good, you know, the film definitely tries to carry on with those character beats that we've all gotten to know from that first season. And I was just happy to see these guys back. I mean, that was one thing I was looking forward to this movie, is that I get to see these wonderful characters that I love from the first season of Wu Assassins in this movie. So that was nice. The other positive I guess I could point out here is that I thought some of the action sequences in this film were actually quite good. Here's the thing. When you watch Wu Assassin Season 1, the fight sequences are really, really good, but you can tell that they have a very tight budget. Whereas in this movie, you can tell they had a little bit more money, and they definitely used that money in these action set pieces, where there's cars crashing through buildings, there's explosions going on, car chase sequences on highways for a very short span of time, of course, but it happens in this movie. There's even a boat chase scene, I meant to say, in this river out in Thailand, which was fine. I was actually happy to see that they were definitely using action sequences other than fighting in more like action adventure type of a way, if that makes any sense. So I actually appreciated that. What else can I point out here too? Oh, so the film is directed by Raul Rene, who I'm actually a fan of. I think he's a really good director, but for some reason, most of his movies don't really do it for me. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is the third film he's done in Thailand, where one of the films he's also shot in Thailand was The Marine 2. Say what you will about the Marine franchise, I love that franchise. That's one of my favorite new franchises of all time. I love that franchise with a passion. He directed the second film, and I actually like that movie. Is it a great film? Absolutely not. It's not a very good movie, but I still enjoyed that film. And he shot that film entirely in Thailand, and he captured some beautiful imagery of Thailand. And he also did that for Hard Target 2, which is another film he had also directed as well with Scott Adkins. I thought the film was just okay personally, but again, you're getting a side of Thailand that, at least for me, because I've never been to Thailand, that I didn't get to see in the Marine 2, that I got to see in Hard Target 2. That was really, really beautiful, that I thoroughly did enjoy. So he's does a really good job in capturing the beautiful side of Thailand, and he also does his own cinematography too. He's a very good cinematographer, in my opinion. This movie, he definitely shows a lot of his strengths when it comes to the directing and the cinematography. It is beautiful in this movie, in my opinion. So a lot of kudos to Ro Renee. And I also do know that he's going to be directing 3 episodes of the TV show Halo that's going to be premiering on Paramount Plus real soon. So I'm actually looking forward to see how he handles those episodes here, because despite the fact how I feel about some of his movies, he's not a bad director. He's actually really, really good. But I'll go into my negatives later on here. But I thought he did a fantastic job in terms of the directing and the cinematography. My last positive for this film, I'm trying to describe to the best of my ability here, because, okay, let me put this out. So I think at one point this movie was ranked number 1 in Netflix, and I don't know for how long it was, but I remember seeing it was in number 1, which I was really surprised, because having seen the film the first time on Thursday, I not liking it at all, I was actually really surprised. But there was a part of me that was happy that it was number 1, because I really do want this film to do very well. I want people to talk about it, and hopefully a lot of people will come to enjoy it, and then we'll probably get a season 2 of Wu Assassin. That's what I hope would happen. So I think that's why I went back to go watch the film too, because I remember thinking, like, if it's number 1, it's obviously connecting with some people out there. Let me go watch it again and get a better analysis of the movie. I think that's what had happened. Anyways, so when I saw the film for the 3rd time prior to this recording, the film was then in 6th place, but it was still in the top 10. So I was happy that it was in the top 10. So that to me meant something. And I also wanted to point out that with seeing how the film at least is being received as far as like people watching the movie, this brings me hope that maybe, just maybe, we may get a season 2. And if we don't get a season 2 of Wu Assassins, maybe we'll get a sequel to this movie, and I'm hoping that the sequel will be better, which I'll be getting into with my negatives as far as why I feel that way. But that actually was a major positive for me, because I really do want this film to do well, because I love that story of the first season, and I just want that story to continue on in a proper manner with season 2. So I'm hoping something will come out of that with people watching the film, and hopefully there is enough good word of mouth and a lot of high viewership for this movie to garner more interest and put a little more money into season 2 that will hopefully come to fruition. So that right there is actually going to be my final positive for this movie. So now let's get into my negatives. So with my negatives, I'm going to be very careful on how I'm going to explain my thoughts on the film, because I don't want to make it seem as if though I am shitting on the movie, because that's not my intention on how I do this. Even though I have a lot of problems with the film, making movies are not easy, and I understand that. And the more I talk to filmmakers, producers, actors, and so on, I have a much deeper respect for filmmaking and making TV shows and all that stuff, because when you hear the stories of what a lot of these filmmakers are going through to make a film and how hard it is to make, especially independent movies, it's not an easy thing. And if anything, I want people to respect the craft. I want people to respect that process and respect the amount of work that goes into it. Even if the movie sucks, I still want people to respect that. So I'm going to try to be very careful on how I can explain my thoughts on what I feel about the movie. So I'm going to say this here. I didn't connect with any of the characters at all. And this is a shocking thing for me, because I love the characters in Wu Assassins. I love every single one of those characters. In this movie, I didn't care for them at all. Unfortunately, I had no connection with their stories. I had no investment. And it's a shame, because these are the same characters from that first season, played by the same actors from that first season. So the chemistry, for some reason, didn't click for me at all. It really just did not do a single thing for me. It felt a very generic version of what we were getting from that first season of Wu Assassin that was carried on in this movie. It was very, very generic. There was nothing that I could connect with here, as I've already mentioned before, more than once. The other thing is that one of the main characters in that first season is actually a brother and two characters, a brother and sister. That sister was an integral part of that journey of Wu Assassins. She's not in this movie at all. The actress who plays the character in the first season escapes me right now. I'm sure I'll have her image on the screen for you to see. And when you find out in the first, I would say 5-6 minutes of the opening of the movie through an exposition by her brother, she dies prior to the events of the first film, which is the driving force of the story and why they ended up in Thailand, as I mentioned in the plot before. So right away, I knew that was a huge red flag for me. I don't know what had happened for her not to be a part of the production, but I definitely felt like her presence was missing in this movie. So with that introduction of the film and getting a bit of a backstory, what the overall story that you got from Wu Assassins into this film, there was just a major disconnect right away that I had with the movie, and I still felt the same way about that the second and third time around I watched the movie. The other thing about the film is that although some of the action sequences are pretty good, but they were nowhere near as good as they were in the TV show. The TV show did a fantastic job, in my opinion, with the action sequences. For whatever reason, this movie did not do that much for me. I mean, there were some moments that I thought were really well done, and they are well done. I'm not saying that they weren't. They were not terrible. But it just was okay for me personally, which is a shame because Iko Uwais is one of those actors who I just think that, I don't know what it is, man. He's always in some films that aren't always that great, but he's amazing in it. He's good in it, but the films aren't always that good. And this is one of those films for me where I just thought it was just okay. It's not one of his best work he's ever done, but when it comes to American productions, the films he's in aren't always the best, in my opinion. But again, he's really good. This guy always gives it 100%. You can tell he puts in a lot of work and puts in a lot of time and effort to put his best out there, and you definitely do see that in the movie. Unfortunately, it just didn't do much for me. So, what else can I point out here with the negatives? The way the movie ends is predictable. I'm going to point out here too, the villain played by Jason Tobin, who I love. I love him in Warrior. I think he is fucking fantastic in that show. I love his character in Warrior. In this movie, he is the villain. I didn't care for the villain at all. Honestly, his portrayal of this villain did not do a single thing for me. That is a very underutilized character, and there's supposed to be a twist about his involvement with the story, which I saw a mile away. It just did absolutely nothing here for me. And I love the guy. I think he's a really good actor. If you watch Warrior, he is really, really good. Like, I love what he does in that show. So when I heard he was going to be in this movie, I was all in, of course. Nothing happened for me. So there's a lot more going on between himself and the other his other villain counterpart that just didn't work for me at all. Here's the thing I want to point out too, to kind of close out with my negatives. This is one of those situations for me where I felt like it was a lot more about the spectacle rather than the actual substance in itself. Like I said before, that first season of Wu Assassins, you get to spend time with these characters. In this movie, you have attempts to spend with the characters, but you don't have any real time to sit down with them, to really get to know the characters again, to really understand their personal struggles that they're going through. It was all, in a lot of ways, I hate to say it like this, but I don't know really any other way to go about it and explain this, but it was a lot of superficial things, in my opinion. It was a very superficial approach, in my opinion, on how this story was being handled here. I'm not saying that everyone that worked on the project was just phoning it in. That's not what I'm getting across here, but I just didn't have anything to go off here that I could really invest my time with the characters, because there was nothing for me to connect with here, as I've already mentioned before on more than one occasion. So it's an unfortunate thing, but again, I don't hate the movie. I think the film actually was okay. At its absolute best, it was just okay for me personally. I actually would go back and watch the film. In fact, what I intend on doing here is I do intend on one day watching the first season of Wu Assassins, and I'm hoping to reconnect with all the characters again, reconnect with the story, and then maybe, just maybe, my perception of the film may slightly change. I don't think that will be the case, but there is a possibility that it could happen, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, I already knew what I was walking into. So now, enough of my tangent on my negatives. Now let's get into my rating. Well, my overall thoughts on the film is this. As I said before from the very beginning, the film is just okay. I don't hate the movie. I don't love it by any means. The negatives still do outweigh the positives, but the positives that are there, it was just more like what's the best way I could describe it? It was like I was hoping it would get better, even though I knew what was going to happen, but I still wanted the movie to be better. And I'm hoping what would happen is that the film does well enough that we can get a sequel or get a season 2. If this comes out of that from this movie, whoever made the film, I hope they watch it and realize, okay, we need to change a lot of things because what didn't work in this movie, we need to make it better with the TV show or the season 2 or the sequel to this film. That's what I hope would happen, because I really do want the story to continue, because I really do love the characters, but I love the characters that we got in the first season of Wu Assassin, not so much in this movie, which is a shame because it's the same actors, same characters that they're playing, but I got nothing out of it, as I already mentioned before. But despite my feelings on that, though, I'm going to say this movie is still worth a shot. And those are my thoughts on the film. The film is available right now on Netflix, and if you haven't seen the movie, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and make sure you also share and like our videos and hit the notification bell right down there. And follow us on our social media accounts. I believe now the new handle on Instagram and on Facebook is Nerds Rule the World, and on Twitter it is still @the_NRW. Follow me on my social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Rob Medina, and on Facebook still Rob Medina. And I have a show on the channel called You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and you can follow the show's social media accounts on Instagram, You're So Cool with Rob Medina, and on Twitter, You're So Cool WRM. And I want to thank you all very much for joining me here today. I hope you guys did enjoy the review. Until next time, everybody, stay safe out there, and cheers.